Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank ATREE for giving me this opportunity to present a piece of my work to the wider range of audience. Am I audible clearly? Okay. So yesterday, if you were there, you might have heard Sharad mentioning that ATREE has been working in the space of pollution science. And since 10 years I have been in ATREE, I have been looking at, of course with my team, I have been working on addressing issues related to different dimensions of water quality, starting it from water quality monitoring, to modeling, to designing interventions, and how the outcome from my work, from the knowledge I generate, to take it to policy and practice. So since morning, and so last two talks were on Himalayas, so now I'll bring you down to the southern state and the state where we are right now. And so I'll be talking about the implementation work which we did in one of the schools in rural areas. Now, you can ask this question, why school? The reason is that schools are the spaces where we can modify or we can impact the behavior at very young age. Like, the children, they have very young, impressionable mind. So the behaviors could be addressed at very young age. And gender issues can also be tackled in that space. So now, in this particular work, I will be, just like, taking you back to what we heard in the morning. We were talking about urban spaces and what are the challenges and what are the issues related to wastewater use, water quality, and the pollution in urban spaces. But while I was thinking of what I should be talking at ATREE, I thought, like, at the event, I thought I should talk about solutions, because it's enough, like, we talk about pollution, we talk about problems and challenges, and now let us talk about solutions. So in this particular piece of work, which is not my alone, but it was a collaborative work with IISc, James Hutton Institute, University of Glasgow, and it was funded by Scottish government. And we implemented a decentralized wastewater treatment system to address water pollution, water quantity and quality issues in rural schools. Okay, so if you happen to visit a rural school, this is the kind of scenario you will see. There is the school campus, and in the school campus you will see that there are the spaces where children go and they wash their hands, and there are also spaces where there are, like, toilets which are created, and children use those toilets once or twice a day. Now, there are different kind of wastewater streams which originate from these schools. There are these greywater discharges where the wastewater which originates from hand wash area and kitchen wash, we call it greywater. We term it as greywater. And the black water is the water which comes out from toilets. Now, the way the greywater is being managed at present is it just flows in open stormwater drains. And for black water, the leachate, which, like, black water enter into soak pits, and there has been enough studies to say that, and enough evidence to say that how leachate from soak pits is contaminating our groundwater sources. Given that 80% of our rural population depends on groundwater sources, and so are our schools, it becomes very important to address groundwater quality as well as quantity issues. Now, as I just now mentioned in my previous slide, that if we don't address greywater flows, there are enough literature which shows that greywater ends up contaminating our groundwater and surface water with nitrates, organic matter, and fecal coliforms. And also, black water ends up contaminating our groundwater because the leachate, it leaches out and it contributes to fecal coliforms. Now, I think if you have been reading newspapers regularly, you will see, you might have come across news which state that in past 1 month, there has been 3 events in villages in Karnataka where more than 50 people fell ill because of drinking contaminated water. So contaminated water is a huge, huge issue. So, so why does this contamination happen? Because we have this mindset of linear use of water. We extract the water from the source, we use it, and we dispose it. Now, to address the pollution challenge, we have to move from this mindset of linear to circular, that how we treat and then we reuse. But how do we do that in practice is what I'm going to show you in this particular piece of work. So this is the school, and it is located around 200 kilometers from Mysore. It's a place called Berambadi. And the school, when we visited this school, now you can ask this question, why this catchment? Now this catchment has been well studied by Indian Institute of Science, where they have said that the catchment is heavily contaminated, and because of agricultural use of water, the groundwater has declined. And when we visited this school, we found that the water quality was contaminated, and children were like, the school was getting water only 2 times a week. So it became very important for us to implement some solutions to address to address water quality and quantity issues there. So we, with my collaborators, we implemented this decentralized wastewater treatment system at the school, keeping in mind all the components which you see in these circles to make sure that the system which we deploy, it functions. And, and the objective of deploying this integrated water management approach at school was that the goal was to reduce dependence on fresh water, to reduce pollution of surface water, and also to make sure that the system which we implement is co-managed and co-designed with the help of community. Because once we leave the project, who is going to take care of that project? So to generate that sense of ownership was very important for us. And I think this particular project was truly interdisciplinary in a sense, because social scientists and natural scientists were involved from the beginning of the project. And we began this project by understanding the sanitation behavior of the community and of the school children, that what are the challenges they are facing when they have to use toilets in the school. So even when we designed decentralized wastewater treatment system, the design was guided by what the inputs we got from the school children. So when we design, now we talked about the solutions. It's not theory. I'm going to tell you practically how we went ahead and implemented solutions which are optimal, because cost is also a consideration. So first important thing when we go ahead and design any intervention is we need to do a thorough baseline. Why do we want to do baseline is because it is important to understand what is the current state of water in the school or in the area where you want to deploy intervention. What is the amount of contaminant? What are the types of contaminant, and what is the contaminant load you want to address, right? And once you deploy the intervention, once the intervention starts, then if you have to assess its impact, you should know what it was before the intervention was done. So before and after comparison is also very important to assess the impact of intervention. And most of the time, you might have come across various interventions which are done on the lake, but most of the times these interventions don't scale up. Why they don't scale up? Because we don't have evidence on what was the pre and post quality of the lake after the intervention was implemented. So in the absence of data, it is very difficult to scale up solutions. So as I mentioned, we designed the solutions based on the baseline. And one important thing, that social behavior was also assessed, and it also helped us in designing septic tanks, because how do you, so you can look here that there was this CHIT method which was deployed to estimate how much is the fecal load which originates from the school per day, and that helped us in designing septic tanks. So, so coming to the baseline data, now here this particular study is already published, where you can see in this particular graph, okay, so you can see here, this particular data basically shows you different contaminants and their seasonal variations. Now, it is very important to capture seasonal variations, because if you don't capture seasonal variations, how you are going to design your optimal treatment system? Suppose you are using TSS values which are obtained in the first season, and you design your system using that, it will be highly under-designed system, and it will fail to provide efficient water quality or discharge standards. And then we also measured how much water was consumed per day, because we also wanted to look that once we implement water circularity at school, how much reduction in freshwater usage we observed. So, and what did we want to remove? So once we have these, like if we want to design the system, what are the contaminants we are targeting? So we are targeting organic matter, because if we discharge wastewater with organic matter into rivers, it will cause eutrophication, it will lead to reduction in dissolved oxygen levels, and you will see a lot of negative outcomes in surface water bodies. We want to remove fecal coliforms. As I mentioned to you, fecal coliforms are indicator organisms which tell whether pathogens are present or not. So interventions are designed to ensure that these contaminants are removed. Nutrients also very important contaminants, because if you discharge water with nutrients, it leads to eutrophication of water bodies. So, and of course, as I was mentioning to you, community engagement was a very important part. It also guided us, like interaction with students, their demands, what kind of barriers they have when they use sanitation at school, guided us in what kind of design we want to put in, which is environmental which basically suited the environmental and social conditions of that particular school. So this is the decentralized sanitation system which was deployed. So as I mentioned to you that there are two types of wastewater streams, broadly two types of wastewater streams that generate from this school, Greywater and Blackwater. So for Greywater, we deployed Greywater treatment system. For Blackwater, it was, and in addition to that, we also had a rainwater harvesting tank which was deployed at the school to reduce their demand on fresh water. Then there was septic tanks which were deployed, and to make sure that the effluent from septic tank meets the environmental discharge standards, constructed wetlands were also designed and deployed at the school. So you can see for Greywater treatment system, it was nothing but because Greywater itself doesn't have very high suspended solids load, so it was just a filter media of different grain size which was deployed, and it was around 4 days of retention time, which water took from when it moved from source to the outlet. And you can see that the water, the treated grey water, was then pumped to overhead tank, and it was used for flushing. Now the entire system is gravity fed system, so no pumping was used except for aeration. Now aeration was deployed because the kitchen waste showed very high amount of organic matter, because there was a lot of food that was being cooked and a lot of organic matter which was being generated. And septic tank was also deployed at the school to take care of black water, as I mentioned, because previously there was a leach pit, and leach pit was leading to contamination of groundwater. So we put septic tank, and septic tank, outflow from septic tank entered constructed wetland. It met the environmental discharge standard. Initially we thought, okay, children, school can use it for gardening and all, but we wanted to be safe because we are talking about children, and we never wanted children to come accidentally in touch of that treated water and get affected by that. So the treated water was discharged into open stormwater drains, and it met the effluent discharge standards. Rainwater harvesting was also done because there were two reasons. First, it helped, it was used for non-potable purposes, and second, during holidays when there is no outflow from septic tank, when children are not using septic tank, then constructed wetland, because it has plants on it, it need water to sustain. So then that water could be pumped and can be used for sustaining constructed wetland. So these are a few of the results, graphs I want to show you. Basically, it is showing that the COD levels significantly reduced in Greywater. Nitrate levels were significantly reduced, and coming to the numbers, we found that the Greywater treatment system gave us 94% efficiency, and fecal coliform reduction was 99%, which meant that a simple gravity-fed filter was able to meet the urban reuse standards. And looking at the load reduction, we found that in terms of load, BOD reduction was 75% and COD reduction was 76%. Coming to black water treatment system, as I mentioned to you that the outflow from septic tank entered into the constructed wetland, so we wanted to check the efficiency of the constructed wetland system. So so this is the data which you are seeing right now is the effort of 1 year, where the water samples were collected monthly twice to see what is the efficiency of these systems. So again, the key findings for the constructed wetland was that the effluent met the environmental discharge standards, and it was safe to be discharged into the adjoining lake. And in terms of water consumption, this is the data which shows that in terms of reduction on fresh water, because the treated grey water was used for flushing, this is how we introduced circularity. So treated grey water was used for flushing, so we end up reducing consumption on fresh water by 54%, which is a very huge number in itself. And for pumping grey water, because again, we need to pump grey water into overhead tank, we had deployed solar panels, and solar power was used to do that. So this is the last slide. Now there should be some exit plan, right? So we finish our project, we leave the project, then who takes care of these systems? So one of the things which we did, and it's not me, but it was the social science team who did, was they started this youth training program. What we realized was that the youth were the people who were vandalizing all the things in the school. So what we did was we enrolled them into the youth training program, and we trained them on the functioning of how does these systems function, and they were given the internship certificate and also some amount, and that is how we embedded the knowledge of that system within the community itself. So yeah, so this was the exit plan, and these are the institutions and my team who worked to implement this project. And yes, thank you so much.